Okay, here we are. Welcome back. Hour number 2. Preston James joins us this hour. He is one of my favorite writers. He is always fascinating in what he has to say, agree or disagree. And remember, that's the whole game. You don't have to agree with anyone or everyone or even someone. All I ever ask people to do is hear me out and understand what I'm saying. That's it. After that, it's do what you want, take it or leave it. Turn the radio off. I don't care. Just understand what I'm trying to offer. Don't accept it. Don't agree with it if you don't find it amenable to your way of thinking. That's fine. Don't ever get into the fatal intellectual trap of only reading and bathing in things you approve of. There's no growth in that. Nowhere but down. It's a cul-de-sac to nowhere. You've got to stretch your mind by challenging it with things that sound crazy to you or don't make sense or over the top or that can't be. It's science fiction. Challenge yourself and grow. And that's my little spiel. Hello, Preston. How are you?
Good. How are you, Jeff?
Still here. Thank you, sir.
You're right, though. You know, it is good for us to learn all the different positions, and there's so many things in the world right now that are coming to a head. It seems as if there's new conflicts all the time. I guess I'm most concerned about the Middle East and the Ukraine. I think these are flashpoints that, if they're not managed properly, they could take us into a
easy
third world war. Yes,
Ukraine is the most volatile situation I believe that I've seen since what I understand of the Cuban Missile Crisis. And I'll tell you why. I said it last hour. If Kiev's masters, the Rothschild banksters, the royals, the Zionists, order them to unleash their military machine, and it is a big machine, all arrayed against the Russian-speaking peoples in the south and the east, and they begin a massive genocide, Vladimir Putin will have no, in my view, if he doesn't come in, he will be viewed forever as a coward and as someone who turned his back on. They just sent in another relief convoy today, a huge Russian relief convoy to the Donbass, to Donetsk and Luhansk. He cannot let these people be liquidated. He will have to move. The West knows it. Porky knows it. Ratzenyuk knows it. The Rothschilds know it. Everybody knows it. That's the game here. And that greaseball in the White House knows it too. So to me, this is the biggest forced war that may ever happen. They're going to force it. They're doing everything they can to provoke Russia.
Well, you're right. And of course, it may be that Putin is much more dangerous than we realize. I have had some insider experts that know about all the military hardware around the world tell me that that Russia actually has superiority over us in new fourth generation nukes and missile systems, interception systems, and guidance systems. Did you see? Do you remember? And you folks out there, do you remember the huge meteorite that came in over Russia? What was it, a year and a half ago now? I think it was the big one. Yeah, I remember that. That was a big one. Yeah.
If you watch,
it broke windows. A sonic boom. I think
couple hundred miles away. But what happened that was most telling and most important, and if you look at there are videos up there on it, that incoming meteor, at that point a meteorite, was hit from behind and below by a projectile and broken into pieces. The projectile came right out the front side and kept on going.
It was shot down. Yeah, it was shot down.
That's right. It was disintegrated by a Russian ground-to-air defense weapon. That's pretty high-tech stuff.
It is. It is. And, I think what happened was after World War II, the Russians pumped all their money into defense and went for broke. And then when they started running out of money, then, of course, Reagan hit it real hard with Star Wars and everything, and really surpassed them. And then after the Soviet Union fell and the new Russian Federation rose up, what they had to do was throw away all their junk, sell it to all the third world countries, and then start creating really super high-tech efficient stuff. So less weapons, but much better. And apparently they've done two things. They have a new type of guidance system that's called hiving. Are you familiar with that?
Hiving, yes.
Yeah. And the second thing they did was they
tell our listeners a little bit about hiving real quick.
Well, first, I just want to say the second thing was they junked all the computer hardware from the West. In other words, they have their own chip assembly and all this stuff. So there's no back doors and stuff. Hiving is a very, very interesting concept. I don't understand how it works specifically, but what they did is they analyzed how bees and ants work, how they found out that bees were communicating like 2-3 miles away from the queen. If the queen got upset, they would come back, even though there's no way for them to communicate other than
non-local collectivist thought processes. Somehow, energy. That's all energy.
They figured out how it works. I'm going to speak. Excuse me.
Wild.
This is really heavy stuff. So they could detect no low-grade radio transmissions of any kind. So they assumed it had to be through a different dimension. What they found out was that there are special metallizing particles inside each bee's brain, which is like a compass or a GPU system, where it's not just a compass, but they actually can tell where they've been and where they're going. And they're communicating through a different dimension. It's called quantum communication. And it's really fascinating stuff. And so what they did
takes the magnetite idea and really just takes it way down the road from where it was.
Right. Well, anyway, they supposedly mimicked that system neurologically and built it into their computer chip. So what happens, supposedly, what I've been told is they have these missile interceptors, and you know that for that meteorite to be hit like that, those had to really be moving, and they had to take off quick and really be moving, because that meteor was really coming in fast. Yeah.
Yep.
So this apparently what they have now is they have supersonic missiles, ship launched, ground launched, and space launched. That at first they said Mach 7 times the speed of sound. Then
they're hypersonic.
Right. Then they said Mach 9. Now somebody said Mach 14.5 to 15, and they're probably even faster than that. But they put out various waveforms in front to disrupt the air when they're going through, so they don't burn up. They got some tremendous technology. But what the hiving part of the deal is let's say they launch a pack of these things, maybe 12. What happens is they all are going to different targets. But if one target is already destroyed, they will recalculate. Yeah, let's say, or one of their missiles is shot down. They will continually recalculate off what the countermeasures are of the enemy. So in other words, they're calculating off the enemy's radar systems all the time, and it makes it almost impossible to stop them because they fly low to the ground, they zigzag, and they go in spirals, and they're very hard to hit, almost impossible to hit. And so some experts have said that if we ever were dumb enough to get into any kind of a confrontation, Jeff, they would sink all the carriers, in 5
minutes.
Right.
They're floating forest lawn graveyards. That's what they are.
Well, that's it. You heard about that incident with that one ship 6 months ago, didn't you? With the American ship, some Russian fighter plane flew over, and I can't remember where it was.
Oh, it was about, that happened several years ago, actually. Maybe it happened again. But the one several years ago was the USS, I want to say Hornet, but that isn't it. Anyway, the name renamed one after a World War II carrier, but whatever. Okay, it was a major supercarrier, and the Russians flew right over the thing and took pictures of the flight deck of Americans running around trying desperately to put an aircraft aloft to chase the Russians away. Flew right over the damn thing.
I know. The worst part was
they neutralized the radar. They couldn't see them. They came in totally stealthily.
Well, they'd been bragging that the Aegis, interception system was the best in the world, 20 years ahead of the Russians or Chinese or anybody else. It completely locked up the whole Aegis system. Nothing worked. They couldn't target. They couldn't launch. They couldn't do anything. And it freaked out the fire command people completely because they'd been lied to. They found out it's not true. Our stuff is not as good as the Russian. I guess the story was it was one plane that flew over it, but actually I heard that there was more to it than that. They had a couple other flags flying around there in the distance, triangulating the signals in.
Correct.
But that's devastating, because if that system is operational, if that's fully operational, that means let's say that that the Zios want to take Ukraine as their new homeland, because it's a commonly known fact now that Israel's finished. It's going to be balkanized. You know that, Jeff, right?
Yeah, I've heard it many times. Yeah, I wouldn't.
Well,
be surprised.
Kissinger said it too, and the top leaders in Israel know it. So they want to move to the Ukraine, their homeland, because they're Khazars. Even admitted in Haaretz that the genetic studies showing that they have no Hebrew blood are true, that they're Khazarians. They want to
Correct.
go back to their homeland.
That's the Southern
right.
Caucasus. Yeah.
All right. So the plan is Victoria Nuland went in there and, of course, created that coup d'etat, which put Poroshenko in. And then they were going to take Crimea. And, of course, the Crimeans voted to bring Russia in. 87 or 90%, voted to be annexed by Russia?
Correct.
Okay. And now about half the people in the rest of the Ukraine want to be part of Russia, too, because they like the way Putin's handling things. They don't like what's happening. Well, what they did is they passed in the Ukraine parliament that a new rule where they can bring in foreigners and give them citizenship and diplomatic status and appoint them into the government to run the government, because you saw that they're all coming from Israel. Anyway, the problem is that NATO has become Israel's bitch, and NATO has been doing these Operation Gladiators. It was really this is a partnership forged in hell. Nobody would ever figure this out. I would have never believed unless I'd seen the evidence. After World War II, you had the Gehlen-Mueller system, left behind Nazi army, which became NATO. And their job, of course, was to haul drugs, pedophile, trafficking kids, sex trafficking, and all that. And then start wars.
As directed by the Rothschilds.
You got it. So here what you have is a strategic partnership between the Fourth Reich, the DVD, some people call it, and the Rothschild bankers. So you have, and of course, many people say the Rothschilds have no Hebrew blood in them at all, that they're Khazarians, and they've been accused many times of being Teutonic Zionists, or in other words, the new Crusaders, and having nothing to do with Hebrew blood or Judaism or anything else.
They really don't.
No.
Zionism is a secular, meaning non-religious movement of world control. That's all it is.
Right. Well, would you go one step further? Would you say that it's a large organized crime?
International
syndicate? Yeah.
It's a worldwide crime syndicate.
But it's more about crime than anything else, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just say that, the usual role of NATO is to start wars. Now, it's very hard work to start a war. It's much harder to start one than it is to fight one. And so that's where the terrorists come in. NATO will have all these Gladio-style terrorists blowing up innocent people and doing all these things, and then of course they get involved, get the war going, and then they fight along with them. Now, right now the EU is falling apart. I believe some of the nations are dropping out right now. I heard today, was it Turkey just was dropping out of NATO? It's going to be announced probably within a month or so. So what's happened is apparently nobody wants to accept euros in a lot of the countries over there. Apparently what's happening is falling apart. Now, if that happens, NATO will be absorbed by the UN. But let's just say that Israel wants to really start something up serious, draw the United States into a war. They would use, of course, all these mercenaries like they're doing with ISIS and ISIL. We'll talk about that in a minute. But they will send in NATO and use NATO. Now, I think you're exactly right. I know you believe that if they make a move to NATO to move in there, that there's a point where Russia is going to have to do something. And we know that Putin does not want war. He wants peace. He wants trade and everything else. But we also know he's an extremely dangerous man if he's cornered. He doesn't say too much. He gives people warnings, but you usually don't get a second one. And I think, he's canceled a lot of the leaves in the Russian military and the diplomatic corps.
Oh, they're getting ready. They're getting ready for that possibility.
Now, it could just be a bluff or whatever, but I think if NATO is dumb enough to go up against Russia, I think
they'll get their clocks cleaned.
Yeah, it'll be like a hot knife going through butter. They have no idea, but I don't think he'll stop there. I think I think he will wipe out strategic defense locations in Israel. Because remember, he has the Russian Republic has a lot of money invested in Syria and in Iran, a lot, and weapon systems and everything else. And they know that if they lose those two countries, it's a direct threat to their whole system.
Correct.
Was it Zbigniew Brzezinski that said that anybody that holds Crimea, that's the key Eurasia there, that's the key to the whole enchilada?
Mm-hmm.
You believe that?
Porky keeps saying they're going